Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Avery. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about a productivity technique called the Ivey Lee Method. This will just take a few minutes and maybe it'll be something that's helpful and that you can incorporate into your own day-to-day routine, studying routine, whatever. So what's the Ivey Lee Method? Well, in 1918, there was a businessman named Charles Schwab. He was pretty much a big deal in America. He owned this huge steel factory, pretty rich, pretty successful. So we brought in this productivity consultant. I'm surprised they had them in 1918, to be honest. But he brought in a consultant called Ivey Lee. And he said, can you give me some tips about how to increase productivity among my employees and whatnot. And Ivey said yes, and he said, okay, I'm going to tell you a little trick. I'm going to tell all the employees, and then after 3 months, you can decide whether or not it worked, and you can decide to pay me if you want or not. So the method that Ivey Lee told all of Mr. Schwab's employees was quite simple. So what it was at the end of each workday, the employees should write down the 6 most important tasks that they needed to work on in order of importance starting tomorrow. Only 6, first most important, 6 last important. And then the next day, they come into work and they only work on those items in order. And they don't move on until they finished it. So you don't go to number 2 until you're done number 1. And if you don't finish them all, you transfer the ones that are remaining onto a list for the next day, and then you continue the process. So this sounds pretty simple. It's hardly kind of revolutionary advice, to be honest. It's really make a list and follow your list. But this was insane for Charles Schwab's, it's hard to pronounce his name, his company. He ended up writing Ivey Lee a check. And by the way, remember, Ivey Lee said, pay me whatever you think this is worth. He could pay him nothing. He paid him $25,000. And that was in 1918. So today that would be worth about $440,000 in 2021. And, this is a really, really effective technique. And I use it myself. I don't always use, 6 items. There's nothing special about 6. But what's important is that you prioritize and that you stick to that list. I think in this modern day and age, we can get really overwhelmed with how much there is to do. I mean, everybody has school, jobs, hobbies, relationships. We're online all the time. We're connected. And it can be really hard to know what to focus on. And if we're given the choice of deciding what we want to work on in that moment, we're going to be tempted to work on whatever is the easiest or the most fun for us. And that's a problem because we might convince ourselves and say, you know what, I am working on the most important thing. But really we're procrastinating on what's most important. But since we have so many things to do, it's easy to always procrastinate the most important thing, but then feel like we got a lot done. When in reality, we responded to 10 emails that weren't important and we cleaned our fridge. I had a roommate back in the day, I love her, and her productivity procrastination technique, we all have them. It's one of the better ones, I have to say, but hers was cleaning. And that's a great one because if you procrastinate by cleaning, at the end of it, you could think to yourself, I feel like I got stuff done, and you did. But in a way, it would almost be better if you procrastinated by watching TV, because after watching TV, you can't really delude yourself and say that that was a good way to spend your time and you learned something, unless you watched a documentary, I suppose, on World War II or something. So yeah, that's the simple technique. You write out your priorities, and most of us we know what we need to work on. And I think it's committing to that by writing it down and committing to following this method. It gives you that accountability. So if you kind of decide to go off track and you don't, follow the list and you go clean instead, you can look back at the list and say, hey, I did not follow the list. And the thing is, each day there's so many things we could do, but there's only a very small amount of things that actually matter. And if we just spent a few hours each day on the things that mattered, we'd make way more progress than spending 10 hours on things that don't matter. And, this can be really hard because working on the things that matter, they're hard, and that's why we procrastinate on them. And so in upcoming videos, I'll talk a little bit about that, about how to prioritize and also about how to, push through, because the Ivey Lee method tells us what to do, but the next step is how do we get ourselves to do it. But yeah, that's the Ivey Lee method, 6 items, work on them in that order, and yeah, I found it very effective. Would love to know if you guys found it effective. Please leave something in the comments, comment, subscribe, whatever. I'm a newbie here, but yeah, excited to hopefully get some feedback.